Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with my impressions on the beta for The Division. As you all know, the beta was live this weekend and a lot of people got into play, but not that many people, so I figured that I'd go ahead and make a video on my thoughts on the beta. Now before I do get into that, I want to let you guys know that I'm going to be going to an event on Tuesday and interviewing developers from Ubisoft on The Division. So if you guys have any questions about this game, whether you played the beta or not, any concerns, anything, hit me with them in the comments down below. Be sure to go down there, interact with each other, thumbs up the best questions so I know what's best. And also be sure to tweet me at G27status, any of your questions as well. And I'll be sure to mention you guys, whoever asked the questions, so you'll be featured in the video as well. And you'll get your questions answered because I really want to make sure that I'm tackling what you guys want to know. Because I've been paying attention to this game somewhat, but not as closely as some others may. So I want to make sure I'm asking the tough questions and the right questions. Let's get into my impressions on The Division's beta. So I played this game alone, believe it or not, and the footage you're watching is actually on the Xbox One. I decided to get it a little bit early and ahead of time because it started 24 hours in advance, so I got some advanced time with the game. And like I said, I played this alone, and at first, I'm gonna tell you guys the truth, I disliked the game quite a bit. It didn't present itself properly to me, just in my opinion. And it was just the opening felt flat, and going into it, it was just like a nightmare with all the HUD everywhere. I still stand by that, man. The HUD in this game is a nightmare because when you first come in, it is so overwhelming. It's so all over the place. It's just crowding your screen, and I'm not a crazy HUD guy at all. Usually I ignore it, but this is in your face. It's constantly flickering and changing, and there's a million and one waypoints, and you're really not setting them, and it got a little annoying to me. But you eventually get used to it, like with all games, and I decided to give it a chance. But then there was another thing pushing me away. And mind you, this is like a story of my experience, but I'm also going to go through what I like and dislike. But know that at the end of this, I enjoyed the game quite a bit. Another problem I had was the generic labels in this game because it really turned me off because it sounded like this was going to be like a similar grinding experience to that of Destiny, because it was like encounters, missions, and I was like, oh no, Ubisoft, no. Like I'm sitting there freaking out thinking to myself, like, encounters, that sounds boring, not because of the name, but I go and do one, it's just like, oh, rescue a hostage, oh, fun, you know. And you go do a mission, and some of the side missions are actually very well thought out. I didn't want to play all of them because, like I said, at the end of this beta I ended up really enjoying myself. But like I was saying, the encounters, they just, like, when they started them, they fell flat. I was like, oh no, man, this game can't flop on me. Fortunately, I continued pushing through, even though at first I really didn't want to. I really just wanted to put the controller down and go spend my time elsewhere. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and put my time into this game and really get a good idea of what I'm going into for the event. And I'm damn glad I did, because it's a great game by yourself over time, and I can only imagine what fun it's going to be when you're playing with friends. While playing by yourself is not the ideal way to do it, I can say that so far I really didn't have a big issue with it. The enemies were scaled properly, where if you were in a group or if you were with yourself, it didn't matter, you know, it was still a difficult battle either way. Despite being poorly labeled, let's get into the mission variety a little bit. This is going to be the key to the game in The Division, to set itself apart and to take that step ahead of Destiny. Because if you ask me, that's its competition. If The Division is varied enough, which the beta presented itself as, but I have been burned before with beta variety. When you look at Star Wars Battlefront, I totally fell for it, and I'm not doing that again. The Division, I'm skeptical, but if they continue what they did in the beta, which was doing the encounters, which switched up quite a bit, whether it was a hostage, collecting data, you know, sending it to a cloud, creating a virus, there were multiple different types of missions amongst the mission structure itself. And then the side missions were always different and well thought out. I really did appreciate the mission structure in this game over time. But if that's my couple of hour experience, if it doesn't change over the course of what I'd imagine people are going to spend upwards of like 50 hours in this game or something like that, you know, it really, they need to nail that mission variety and make it not just like, okay, let's establish like 20 missions in the Division and then have them keep repeating those. You know, I want a good solid amount of variety, and from what I played, there is a solid amount. But like I said, despite being poorly labeled, it kind of led me to think that, you know, oh man, they're just all encounters, missions, boom, have fun. But I was actually wrong. They did have some good variety amongst them. It's just a matter of if they can carry this forward into the full launch of the game. Because mind you, when you start up the Division, they say that this is not the finished product. They didn't include everything from the finished product in the game. It seemed they kind of held their cards close to their chest, almost in a good way, because there were different things like in the skills menu where you could see perks, talents, and these were things that were totally inaccessible but really seemed to flesh out your character more. And that kind of brings me to my next point, which is that customization in the Division, I can already tell is going to be great, whether it's your equipment or your abilities. There is a lot of depth to them. When you pick up skins, when you pick up attachments, you can put those on your weapons. You can pick up tons and tons of different weapons, and they all have different like ammo types and stuff, and you can loot different ammo types. You can find armor for your character. You can find also just cosmetic change-ups that don't affect your armor, but they're a separate appearance section, and they change how your guy looks mainly more than the armor itself, which kind of triggers me a little bit. But anyway, the customization is there where you can set yourself apart. They didn't have much in the character creator when you started off for the beta, but obviously I'll have more hands-on with that at my event and give you guys more thoughts on that later. From what I saw, the character detail is pretty good. I really appreciated the cosmetic changes because as RPG gamers here on this channel, we really do appreciate that change, that look. You know, some people are all about fashion in video games, and I'm glad that the Division kind of encourages that. But as for the abilities, you know, there's multiple skill trees, and then inside those skill trees are mods, and you unlock those mods through doing different types of missions, and these missions you get points, and then you invest them back in like your home base. And when you invest in your home base, yeah, it's just like this full circle of like skills, abilities, unlocks, items, etc. And it really is a cohesive and well-crafted system in my opinion, and I really did appreciate what they did with that. You can also find blueprints for weapons out there, and you can find weapon parts during missions, and then you can just put together new weapons. Mind you, this mechanic is not in the beta, but that's how it works. So I really did appreciate that. But just the customization is there, the freedom to really set yourself apart. It seems to be a focus there. You're constantly picking up new loot, and one thing that I was so terrified about with the Division that isn't there is an RNG loot system. And by that I mean like Destiny, where I can kill it in my squad. I can be the best player there, but I'll get the worst piece of loot. It doesn't work like that. As you kill people, yes, they randomly drop loot. Could be good or bad, but mind you, it's just your loot. You go up, you pick it up. If you like it, it's better than your weapon, go ahead, keep it. That's how it works. It's not like Destiny where it's just randomly generated. You know, you could have the worst game ever in your life and get an exotic piece of gear. No. And I think that's a big thing for the Division, because so many games like Dragon Ball Xenoverse, Destiny, these RNG loot systems that, you know, people somehow get hooked on. It's unfair. I like to be rewarded for my skill, or in the Division, just killing things. You know, you kill tons and tons of people in this game, and they all drop adequate stuff. There are boss characters who are tough to take down and have different abilities, and they drop worthwhile gear. It always feels like you're being rewarded. The game doesn't hesitate to reward you, and I really do appreciate that quite a bit. The Dark Zone. This is the one mechanic in the game, while I'm iffy on everything else, although I like what I saw, I'm kind of iffy on the whole entire game because it's a beta, but I can really see the Dark Zone being something successful. It makes the Division an entirely different game. And this entirely different game aspect reminds me of kind of how Dying Light was with nighttime, where during the daytime, it kind of reminiscent of Dead Island. You know, you craft your weapons, you kill zombies, but then they had the parkour. But at nighttime, it's a much more dangerous and survival-like experience. And the Dark Zone is interesting because it's almost like the same thing, where when you go into the Dark Zone, yeah, you kind of have your standard gameplay of going into areas, killing things, looting them and stuff. But the difference is that there are other players in this section that can run around and kill you here, and if they kill you, you lose all your stuff. And it always adds this intense atmosphere, because I've ran into people who have betrayed me, I've ran into people who have let me live, I've ran into people who have actually revived me and had just the nice kind spirit to pick me up even though I went down by an AI or something like that. I've had people back me up in fights, and it's really interesting. Hell, I've been the guy on the other end who's just killing people, and it's really a fun experience on either end, because it adds this intensity to the game itself, where it's like, do I want to kill this guy and take his loot? Do I want to help these people during the extraction or betray them? I remember I came up to this helipad during the extraction. I just walk up to a group of like 7 people, and I believe they were 2 separate groups, and I was just kind of like the wild card. And both of them were like, oh man, what's this guy gonna do? And I just pull out a grenade, and like everyone dives to cover, and like I just joined this one side, and we take everyone out. And it was just such a dynamic thing, and we looted everyone. I leveled up a couple of times, and it was like, man, it's good to be bad sometimes. And it was such a cool experience that really set apart in the entire game itself, and it was only found in the Dark Zone. And so that alone, I think, was the one aspect I was most skeptical about, and I walked away the most pleased about. While the entire game itself, I'm like, who knows, you know, if they carry everything forward properly, this should be fun. But as for the Dark Zone, man, awesome stuff. As a resident of the city the game is set in, I can confidently say that they did a great job recreating New York City. It is fucking awesome walking around Madison Square Garden and being like, damn, I go here for Rangers games all the time. This is sick. And so for me, I really appreciated that authentic recreation of my lovely city. And so I gotta say, man, they've done a great job. I know people have done the graphics comparisons and stuff, and that's always gonna happen. I'm not excusing them, but whatever, man. You know, what I saw, I enjoyed, I liked. It was very authentic. It felt very true to the city. And mind you, the atmosphere of the game was a very lonely feeling, but almost, I don't want to say too lonely, because there were sometimes I was sprinting down streets for long stretches and there was just nothing. Mind you, there's like collectibles, there's things to interact with, people to talk to, things to shoot in missions that you might encounter randomly. But sometimes I was just running for long stretches of time with nothing there. And that's one thing that kind of threw me off. I was like, I don't know, you know, this is like, I'm so used to and being spoiled by Fallout and just Bethesda in general, where like I just find something to do every like 10 steps, where in this game, like running a long stretch down a street like for a mile and not seeing anything just kind of makes me go, this could have been used for something. But there are a lot of random empty buildings that you can go into and loot. There are collectibles like recordings, dossiers, and all this stuff you could find that leads you to different areas. So yeah, I walked away pretty impressed with The Division, because if they just keep carrying forward with what they're doing now, then they have a great line of success ahead of them. Mind you, that's if they don't hold back anything for DLC. I know they have 3 planned expansions right now, along with free content updates and all that stuff. But as long as they do it right, as long as they're not taking away from the whole game, that's all that matters to me. And if they're not doing that, then by all means, sell us extra stuff as long as the game is damn good. But anyway, these are just my thoughts on the beta. As you all know, I will have tons and tons of more The Division content leading up to its launch, because we are all post-apocalyptic fans, we're all RPG fans, so I feel The Division is right up my alley, and I'm going to be attending an event and doing more extended content for The Division up until and even after its launch. So I hope you guys are really excited for that, something a little bit different, and I thank Ubisoft for just giving me all these opportunities to cover the game. It's really awesome of them. But anyway, if you guys have played the beta, or you're curious on something, or you want to ask a question or anything, fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Also, be sure to check out sugarbomb.com, the place by Bethesda fans for Bethesda fans. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.